Hello, BookTube. Hello, friends. Welcome to LizziefayeLovesBooks. I'm Elizabeth. This year, in the month of May, for our Book a Day in May project, we set out to try and read 3 more decades of Caldecott Winners, but we only got 2 done. We did read 31 books, Emily and I, together in the month of May, but only 20 of them were Caldecott Winners. So in this video, I'd like to share with you the Caldecott Winners of the 1990s. This was a decade that I was not really familiar with. I was already an adult in 1990, and so I wasn't really reading children's books, but I did not have any children until 2001. So this is a decade of children's books that I was unfamiliar with. And we enjoyed our exploration of the Caldecott Winners of the 1990s. There was just one book that I did not read to Emily completely. I started it and I was just not comfortable reading it completely to her, and I'll tell you about it when I get to it. But the first one from 1990, the winner of 1990, is Lon Popo. This is by Ed Young. It is a Red Riding Hood story from China. This is a combination of watercolor and pastel, and it is beautifully illustrated. We enjoyed this one a lot. I mean, the wolf is pretty scary. But this was a really good story and very beautifully illustrated. So, yeah, if you have never read Lon Popo, then you might want to pick it up. Let me know as we go along if you have read any of these before. I know for me personally, I was not familiar really with any of these. We did read one of these last year, which I'll get to in a minute, but I went ahead and read it again so that we could, share with you this video. This one, by far, was the craziest. Black and White. It's by David Macaulay. And, okay, let me just read you the first page. It says, warning, this book appears to contain a number of stories that do not necessarily occur at the same time. That's true. Then again, it may contain only one story. In any event, careful inspection of both words and pictures is recommended. So, here's the first page. Now, it's done in 4 different blocks. Each page is 4 different blocks. Story 1 is called Seeing Things. This one is called Waiting. I'm not even sure which order they're supposed to go in. The next one down here is called Problem Parents. This one is called A Waiting Game. And then this one is called Utter Chaos. So as you go along, now I tried to just read this to Emily. I read everything on these 2 pages and then turned the page. Then I went back later and I just turned each page and I read each section. It's just bizarre, but it's funny. And there's just so many different interpretations of it. If you pick up any one of these books after watching this video, get this one and read it and tell me what you think. It's just so interesting and hilarious. So then this one we read last year. We read it again. Let me just say Flying Frogs. This is by David Wisner, who I believe has another winner in the next decade. This one, again, just bizarre. This is my daughter Katie's nightmare, to have frogs flying. She doesn't like frogs. It's cute, but it's bizarre. And I don't think there are very many words at all. Yeah, there's just like a handful of words throughout the whole book. Definitely very fantastical. Then the next one is Mirette on the High Wire by Emily Arnold McCulley. And this one was about a young girl who wanted to be a tightrope walker. And she meets a man who has been a tightrope walker and he's trying to retire, but she wants she wants him to teach her, and it's their story. It might be based on a real person, but I can't remember. There is another tightrope walker story in the next decade, and I think it is based on a real person, so that's why I may be getting this mixed up. But anyway, very enjoyable. This one I think also is based on a true story. This is Grandfather's Journey by Alan Say. This is the story of the author's grandfather. He was born in Japan and then moved to North America and then moved back, and throughout his life, if he was in one place, he was missing the other place. And then same thing has kind of happened with the author. Either he was born in Japan and moved to North America, or vice versa. I don't know. But he says at the end that he understood his grandfather's dilemma. It was like he had two homes, and he missed the other one when he was not there. And this was very good. This is Smoky Night by Eve Bunting, illustrated by David Diaz. And this, just to, so I don't mess up the description of this one, Daniel and his mother look out of their window at the smoky night below. There are looters on the street, fires in the distance. Daniel clutches his cat Jasmine, but later, when they're forced to leave their apartment building, Jasmine can't be found. Mrs. Kim's cat is missing too. Where are they? They can't be with each other. Those cats don't get along. Smoky Night is a story about cats and people who couldn't get along, and until a night of rioting brings them together. So this is a story about, now whether this is based on an actual event, I don't know for sure. But I really like the mixed media that this story is illustrated in. This is just the end papers. And then there are the drawings here, which are not my favorite style of drawing. But then underneath that is kind of this scrapbook of mixed media that is underneath in... that is underneath each of the panels of drawings. So this was a good story. It was, it was sad. It was a tough story, but it's about people in an apartment building, and there are looters and rioting below, and then I think their building catches on fire, so they have to go out. A couple of people have, lost their cat, and it's just a story about how all these neighbors did not even know each other at first, but then this horrible circumstance brings them together. And it was very good in the end, and we enjoyed it. And I do really like that mixed media style of illustrations. This was my favorite of this decade, and it's probably going to be one of my favorites from this whole project. This is Officer Buckle and Gloria by Peggy Rathman. This was adorable. This is about a safety officer who gives safety lectures in schools, and he gets this dog. So at first he's just, boring. Nobody likes to see all the kids. Nobody is listening. Nobody's paying attention. Nobody wants to listen to the safety speech until Officer Buckle brings this dog Gloria, and Gloria starts illustrating the safety speech behind Officer Buckle, and Officer Buckle has no idea what is going on. He does not know that Gloria is doing these things behind his back. And he just thinks that all of a sudden everyone's interested in safety, until he sees, I think, a newspaper article, or sees a video finally of himself and Gloria. And then he's kind of disheartened, because he's like, they didn't want me. They just wanted Gloria. But in the end, he embraces it, and they go on from there. But it is just precious. I thought this was adorable, and I really enjoyed this one. Next one is the Caldecott Winner of 1997, and this is the one that I started reading to Emily, and I ended up not finishing it. I did come back later and read it to myself, and I don't know really how much I want to say about it. I'll just kind of give you the facts and kind of try to help you understand why I didn't want to read this out loud to her. This is called Gollum, and it is by David Wisniewski. This is based on an old Jewish legend, I believe, that's mentioned in the Talmud, which is a book of writings, ancient writings of the Jewish people. And in this book, this may be based on historical events, or it's based on an actual Jewish rabbi from like hundreds of years ago. Anyway, the story goes that because the Jews were under attack, and they felt like they were in danger, he wanted to find a way to bring the Jews into safety. And he called up this ancient legend called Gollum, which is kind of a Frankenstein type of story. And he did it in the name of God. And that's where I started getting really uncomfortable, because I I'm a Christian. We worship the same God that the Jews do. Of course, the Jews don't believe that Jesus is the Messiah, as opposed to Christians, where Christians do believe that Jesus is the Messiah. But there were like words that were like the spell words and things that he was using to call this creature forth. And he wasn't trying to do anything bad. He was trying to help the Jews, but I just had a hard time with them doing it in the name of God, for one thing, and I didn't want to say those words out loud, and give any power to any kind of evil influence or anything, because I don't believe that doing something like this is anything that God would sanction. So I just didn't feel comfortable reading this out loud to her. It's hard enough to try to explain and differentiate realistic fiction from fantasy fiction, and when we start talking about him praying to God and doing this thing, I just wasn't going to go there with her. And I started reading it, and I said, you know what, Emily, I said, we're not going to read this one. So that's as far as it went with her. And then I came back later and just read it. In the end, I wouldn't have had a problem reading it to her just as a mythical story. I just didn't want to say some of those words out loud. There's really only like one or two words, I think, that were kind of like the spell words. I just didn't want to bring that into my house and say that out loud. And that's, you can agree or disagree with me or think I'm over the hill loopy, but that was what I felt at the time. And that's just the reasons behind it. But anyway, this, I will show you the illustrations. I don't know that I love the illustrations either. They are very dark and sort of gothic looking. It's, very, it's a lot of, dark tones and oranges and things like that. It was just, I just wasn't a fan of it at all. But anyway, this is the winner from 1997. Definitely a very talented individual who drew this, but just not a story that I wanted to read to my daughter. The next one is the winner from 1998. This is a retelling of Rapunzel. It is by Paul O. Zielinski. This was beautifully illustrated. I really like the tower. It said in the author's notes that because there are different versions of Rapunzel, that the author researched different ones and in the end went with the Italian style and made the tower more along those lines. Definitely very recognizable as the Rapunzel story, but some differences to the Disney version. But anyway, a very interesting and beautifully illustrated. And then the last one from 1999 is called Snowflake Bentley. This is by Jacqueline Briggs Martin and illustrated by Mary Azarian. This is based on a true story. This is a man who was basically obsessed with snowflakes. He was very interested in snowflakes, and he had one of the earliest cameras, and he used cameras to differentiate the snowflakes because he really wanted to share and study snowflakes, and there was no way to do it without them melting before he could compare them. So he did his study of snowflakes by photographing them. I believe he is considered to be one of the world's biggest experts on snowflakes. So this was really good, very enjoyable. There he is with one of his early cameras. So let me go now and show you the footage of Emily's favorites, and then I'll come back to sign off. And as I usually do, I like to break down the decade into groups and ask Emily her favorites of each group and then narrow it down to her favorite of all. And so for the first 3 years, 1990, 91, and 92, she picked Tuesday by David Weisner. That's the one with the flying frogs. And for 93, 94, and 95, she picked Mirette on the High Wire by Emily Arnold McCulley. And for the last group, I showed her the books from 96, 98, and 99. I did not put Gollum in the group because I did not finish reading that to her. So of these three, she picked my favorite, Officer Buckle and Gloria by Peggy Rathman. And so then of her final top three, I would say I think she picked well. These are definitely three of the most colorful and just fun books. So of these three, she picked Marette on the High Wire as her favorite. And I have to admit, I did kind of question her a little bit. I was like, are you sure? Because I think Officer Buckle and Gloria is my favorite. And then she almost waffled and went with Tuesday, but I said, don't change just because, just because I think different. So she stuck with Marette on the High Wire as her favorite. All right, so that's the end of this video. Were you surprised about Emily's favorites? I kind of was, simply because I just was sure that she was going to pick my favorite, but it's fine. I'm glad that she picked what she did and showed that she has her own mind and can make up her own, make her own choices. So anyway, that's all for this video. Probably my next video will be my overall wrap-up of what I read in the month of May, and then I'll come back after that and share with you the 10 Caldecott winners from 2000 to 2009, and I hope to see you in the comments of both of those videos as well as this one. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these, or if any of them sound like you would like to read them. I'm sure you're probably all curious to read Gollum now, and you're probably going to think, what's wrong with this? But it was just a personal decision at the time, and sticking with it. Anyway, that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.